Hey, what's up everyone, it's Soko here with another New World video. This game has gotten a lot of changes since launch, improving itself significantly. They have done a lot of the little things that people appreciate and want from games like this. It's far from perfect, still has a long way to go, but I do believe more than a few returning players from this recent surge will appreciate how far it's come. But we are not here to talk about where the game has been or is, but where it could go in the future. What I hope to see from it. I believe that changes like the ones I am going to propose in this video will go quite a ways in adding to this game. It's for sure not an end-all be-all list, but I think it does nicely. If there's anything you disagree with, want to add to, please put it down in the comments. This is all about trying to make the game better, and that doesn't happen without honest discussion. Thank you. Gonna start off with a quick one here, but I would love to see more cinematics in the game. They did a great job with the opening ones, and afterwards we just don't really have anything. I know we are getting a revamped experience, so it's possible that there are some in there, or maybe that's just already in the works for afterwards. I don't know. I certainly don't want Final Fantasy length cutscenes. I'm trying to play a game, not watch a movie. But having a great cutscene here and there can really help draw you in. When I was a lot younger, I remember playing the first StarCraft, and watching those cutscenes prior to a mission always set this tone of what was to come. Again, I was much younger, and maybe that contributed to some of the impact it had, but it definitely makes me appreciate and value that sort of effort. The big thing that I find irritating lately, one of the biggest, and to be honest, I remember it being irritating when it launched as well, but not having the ability to have some fast switch preset loadout or whatever to switch your gear and skills at the click of a button. Sure, charge me the Azoth for the skill reset. I don't really care. Azoth is much less of an issue than it used to be, but please give me something to switch from a PvE spec to a PvP spec. Maybe I want a tank now, so I switch it up for that. Then afterwards do a range build because I'm that guy during Outpost Rush. It doesn't matter. Fumbling through my storage to find the proper equipment to get a new build ready is extremely annoying.
Where are my pens?
You threw them out the window in a fit of passion. You said you were never going to need them again.
Yeah, well, Marge, I fucking lied. Tanky McTankersons is back in business.
Someone's in here!
I would say that most people don't have a ton of builds they load out and optimize for. There are quite a lot that will use different gear for PvE or PvP, but usually it's within the same weapon combination. Given the PvP specific gear that has come out via the PvP tracks, it makes even more sense that specific gear will be preferably used for PvP, assuming they have another option. Anyone who is trying a little bit to optimize will try and replace that gear for something better suited to PvE when possible, because it is basically a waste of a perk to have a PvP only perk during PvE. Now, hang on. Before you set me on fire in the comments because you're worried about people switching things up on you mid-fight, let me just tell you that this next suggestion is a solution for that. They need to make houses have more purpose and utility. It does have more than some other MMOs that I've played, but I think it should go further. This could be an area that the game uses to try and separate itself from other MMOs. So at the moment, housing has your trophies and containers that help the storage quantity of the town your house is in, and I think it can go beyond this. Now, I'm not saying it needs all of this, but I do think it would be cool to add. Remember when I said I had a solution for people wanting to quick switch skills mid-fight, whether that's PvP or PvE situations? In my opinion, that would be really obnoxious to fight a dude with a musket until you got close and he just throws on heavy armor and a great axe. Well, I think something we could add to homes is like a locker you can make through furnishing. You could add builds to this locker, and provided you have that gear in your storage in town, you just equip it with one click. This click will equip from your storage and reset your skills after paying the Azoth requirement. This will ensure that nobody can do this obnoxious switching in-game on the fly. You could still do it manually, which is a much slower process and annoying to do. Certainly a trade-off for doing it out in the wild. Now, I like the idea they have of trophies and storage lockers adding utility for you. I just think they can add to this a bit. Alright, so I grew up playing some Diablo 2, and another one of my favorite MMOs for quite a while was Elder Scrolls Online. Both of these games have gear sets in them. These are sets of gear that have an increasing amount of abilities the more pieces you have of the same set. Whether they are crafted or dropped, I don't really mind too much. I just like the creativity to builds that this adds. With Elder Scrolls, some sets were crafted only, some sets were from specific dungeons. I was always fond of this type of gear in these games, just the options that it adds. And while I admit adding this to New World would, massively increase the complexity of it and just make it harder to balance, I mean, this always happens when you add new gear or weapons, which are usually OP when released, right?
His weapon was far too large to rightfully be called a sword. By all accounts, it was no more than a hulking mass of iron.
I am totally okay with waiting for something like this while the game focuses on the other issues that it has, but it is absolutely a thing I would like to see in the future. I think they have mentioned this before, but I'm saying it again because I think it's that important. But having a big raid, I think, is very, very fun and critical. And by raid, I mean a large group PvE mission. Current group structure has a max of 5 for a team, but this is an easy fix if we're being honest. I always think stuff like this is a great idea. It adds a lot more variety to the PvE content. Group construction would be a lot more interesting. You could have some interesting dungeon mechanics where, for instance, you split into 2 separate groups that have, your actions have impact on everyone. I actually remember something specifically like this in a trial for Elder Scrolls Online. It was a really fun dungeon to run, and I haven't really run into anything since then. It doesn't seem entirely unique though, if I'm being honest, so I'm very likely am missing something from a different game. Raids certainly seem like a logical next step in terms of PvE content for this game, and I already really like the design of some of the dungeons in game as it is. So I am curious what it could look like if you had to take into account a group of 10 or so. Pretty cool possibility to think about. This one's kind of a long shot because it seems like such a massive undertaking, but having a naval system in this game just honestly fits everything about it. The time period and aesthetic. We literally came here on a ship, for God's sakes. Maybe it starts off as a dungeon of sorts where mobs come onto your ship and you're bailing out to fight a kraken, and that's like the final boss or whatever. Obviously that's just a completely different style of dungeon where they come to you instead of you maneuvering around dungeon with traps and stuff, but it certainly seems attainable. I would much prefer something that had the potential for naval PvP because ever since I played Assassin's Creed Black Flag, I've been riding around with sea shanties on my Spotify playlist. May the wellerman come to bring us sugar and tea and rum. And also, this is when swimming would likely be added. I constantly see the comments about swimming not being a thing, which is hilarious. Like, to go where? You want to swim through the waist-deep water that's shallow on purpose? Pretty much every water source is a creek. It's all very small. Swimming at the moment would be a minor boost to a mild inconvenience. It simply doesn't seem worth the effort at the moment. I realize it's a big ask, but with things looking like they are on the up and up, I feel like I can look towards the possibility of this being a thing a little bit more. And for the final one, more RP stuff, and that's roleplay stuff, like being able to sit in the tavern, for instance, which at this point seems almost silly not to have. Maybe tavern games like blackjack or poker or something. Maybe you can play for gold or umbral shards or Adzal salt. Imagine sitting down at a table and playing while having proximity chat on would be pretty unique to an MMO.
You know what I think he's got? Aces.
That is uncanny.
I think he's got 2 aces.
If there is a game that has this in place at the moment, I certainly don't know of it. This sort of thing could even be intertwined with the governor. Let's say they add a feature where the governor can add a tournament to participate in, whether it's at a certain time or whatever. Obviously, the tavern as it stands right now does not seem like it'd be big enough for something like this, but just imagine some games to participate in for prizes, whether it's gold, umbral shards, again, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Add a reason to come to a city besides crafting, storing, and selling or buying. These are staples, yes. They are mandatory, but now let's start working on some things that branches this game out a bit. I know in The Witcher and Red Dead, I always went out of my way to play these card games. And yes, those are single player games, but they were still fun. I would bet it would even be more fun with someone sitting next to you that you can chat it up with. I would certainly make for some extremely memorable moments, that's for sure. Let me know down below what you think of these suggestions. Like and subscribe if you appreciate and would like to stay up to date with New World. Again, I'm Zoko, and I'm out of here.